Hello people, welcome back to another episode of Beginner's Guides. Today we're going to be focusing on Fodders, who are the most important brothers that you actually have to build till you have the main brothers. So who are Fodders? They are cheap early mid-game brothers with suboptimal stats who will basically be your frontline until your main bros can be in frontline. They'll sacrifice themselves to help you get better gear and save your main brother in danger. Depending on what mode you use or not use, Fodders will be highly vary. If you don't use a mod that shows your recruit stats, Fodders will be either background with a potential but have rolled poorly, like this guy, or any cheap bro in around 200ish range and slaves who doesn't cost a wage. So this guy would be a perfect fodder if you don't have enough fodder because he's really cheap. And maybe this guy, let's say he rolled poorly and you hired him. A lumberjack is actually a really good candidate for mid to late game. Regarding which background do you actually choose, I'm going to go into more detail in my next shorter video. So for now, if you're wondering if this brother is worth hiring, probably leave a comment, maybe take a screenshot. I'm trying to work out my Discord channel, and if that comes out you can ask me there. But for now, please ask in the comments. Don't be overconfident with the fodders and don't throw them away. They actually cost them money, especially if you're using them without mods. So someone you hired for 500 gold, if you just get him killed in the first battle. I mean, RNG is RNG, but don't try to just waste them away. Other than that, even if they survive with an injury, don't just retire them willy-nilly. There are things you can do. I mean, probably something like this is the worst injury you can ever get, and do feel free to retire bros like this, but if they have some permanent injury, let's say, like weakened heart, he'll get one-shotted, but he'll still make a good fodder. Maimed foot, you use additional action point per tile, yeah, that's fine. Don't intend to use these guys for that long anyways. So yeah, you can keep these guys. You don't actually have to fire them when they get permanent injury. In fact, someone like a brain damaged slave, yeah, that's completely fine. He now has extra resolve, so he's actually gonna break less easily. And there's almost no downside to having this injury. So don't be too afraid to get permanent injuries on your fodder bros. They're still usable in most case scenarios. And if they're not, you can always actually retire him, pay compensation for 10, because I just hired him today, and you have access to Drill Sergeant. Okay, so every time your fodder levels up, just invest in HP, melee defense, and melee attack, no matter what their stats are and no matter what the rolls are. All other stats aren't too important, including fatigue, since you'll be going nimble and you won't have any room to invest in it anyways. So for level 2, go for Colossus or 9 lives. Depending on their health, if they have less than 55 health, go for 9 lives. With its recent buff, it's really good on fodders. Otherwise, get Colossus to avoid injury and bring some synergy with Nimble. Level 3, take Gifted. Why Gifted? They need every bit of health, melee defense, and melee attack to make themselves useful. There aren't any other perks that give them all. It's passive, so they'll benefit from it every time. Level 4, Rotation. It's the most important skill on your fodders. Their role is to swap out your main bros in danger, and if you're a beginner, this will happen a lot. So even consider taking it on all the fodders you have, see where it goes from there. Level 5, you can be quite flexible with the perk choices. Your fodders won't make it this far regularly, but if they do, you can choose the perks depending on what the brother needs. So if he likes melee attack, take Backstabber or Fast Adaptation, which is just extra chance to hit. So if your brother is gonna surround things a lot, take him Backstabber, and if they're not gonna surround things too much and they're gonna attack twice per turn, Fast Adaptation is the way to go. Only downside is that even if you hit something like a shield that counts as a hit and they reset, it might not be as useful as you think. If your brother lacks defense, take a dodge or shield expert. So for dodge, depending on how much initiative your brother has, you might benefit more or less. but it might be something like extra 5 to 7, and it's gonna diminish really fast because you're not taking any fatigues. On first turn, it really helps out against both crossbowmen, melee attacks, and any extra defense is good even when your brother is fatigued up and it's only providing you 2 to 3 extra defense. And shield expert, it's more of a perk for if your brother is still gonna use a shield by the time he's level 7, and you will use him as a either semi-tanker or anti-flanker with a spear. Also note that the knockback skill gains 15% chance to hit, which is pretty huge because it knocks back your enemies who's engaged with your main brothers who are in danger, and sometimes rotation might not save them, and this knockback is actually pretty useful on those situations. But just be worried that some enemies are immune to knockback. I think like orc warriors. I think orcs in general are actually immune. So quick hand is another solid choice if your brother needs more utility. Nets are very useful in general, and being able to switch and throw nets after moving will make some harder fights like Bandit Leader or Unhold much easier. However, just remember that if you are building 2-hand plus polearm frontliners from my previous video, you will have a brother in backline with a quick hand, and it might not be necessary on your fodders. Lastly, if you're building a dedicated armor hunter, probably consider going something like Flare Mastery or Dagger Mastery, which is both pretty solid perks, but I'll probably go for a Flail Mastery if you don't care too much about the helmet. It's gonna kill your enemies faster, depending on how much how much accuracy you have. So for the level 4 perk, instead of taking rotation, take the perks I've mentioned for level 5 instead. And armor hunters, they use puncture or lash to kill enemy with good armor without damaging the armor itself, allowing you to get more chance to get that said armor as a loot. So flail kills things faster, but you won't get the helmet. One with the puncture, it's just as long as they have high melee attack, they are gonna kill things faster, which might be more useful and allow you with more opportunities to puncture armor rather than just killing them outright. Anyways, moving on, so let's say I took dodge. Level 6, you take underdog. Underdog is pretty much the only option, since it just provides huge defense bonus for the frontliners by removing accuracy bonus on enemies which are surrounding you. Unless they have a backstabber, which isn't too common in early to mid game, they will always have this bonus. So underdog is the way to go since your fodders are gonna be surrounded a lot. Okay, moving on to level 7, nimble. Nimble will just give you a great bonus in tankiness of your fodders, making them extremely useful. They'll also be geared with bandit raid gear anyways, so nimble is perfect pick for them. If he took Colossus and didn't suffer any permanent injuries that reduce HP, he will be a force to reckon with, because he'll be very tanky. Level 8, if your brothers made it up to this, congratulations. I don't think you're a beginner anymore. But if they do, they also have another flexibility perk choices depending on what they need. Probably just take whatever you haven't taken at level 5, or try to actually specialize your brother into something. So let's say if your brother has enough melee attack and melee defense, consider giving him 2-hand weapon and make him fatigue neutral frontliner. And until you replace him, he'll probably be a decent frontliner. So what is a fatigue neutral bro? He's a bro who doesn't use more than 15 fatigue per turn, so they actually don't generate any fatigue except when you're moving. And this removes the need of recover or fatigue investment, which is pretty useful. You just take whatever perk you missed on level 5. You either will need defense or accuracy depending on the situation. If your brother is a tanker, a tanker who you'll just use till you get a real tank, give him every single survival perk available. Even give this guy 9 lives with Colossus, dodge plus relentless, and whatever will allow this bro to survive another turn. So let's say I'm going for a fatigue neutral guy with he's lacking a attack, so I'm taking a backstabber on him. And we move on to level 9, we go for the Killing Frenzy. Killing Frenzy is awesome. It provides you with extra damage for 2 extra turns. Any extra damage you can get, you take. And something like Executioner might be okay since you will be mostly finding humanoid enemies, but that's just another perk you can take. And for level 9 tanker, take Indomitable, which is pretty useful against anything like Well, it gives you survivability and it prevents orc warriors just pushing in as well as unholds. It will allow your company to fight those enemies quite early. Level 10 and 11, take a perk of your choice. So like I said, I might take Executioner on my Fed neutral guy, and even Pathfinder or something like Reach Advantage. And I'll explain some perk choices. So Spear Mastery, you can also pick on a bro who doesn't have enough stats. Maybe he has decent attack stats, but he doesn't have good melee defense, so he still has to use a shield. And let him be on an edge to prevent any surround, keep your main bro safe. So Reach Advantage, you might be wondering, it only provides you 5 melee defense, why are you using it on him? What other perks provide extra 5 melee defense other than the dodge and lone wolf? You're not gonna give him a lone wolf to just die. So yeah, that constant plus 5 melee defense is quite huge if he's using a two-hander. And since he's going Fed neutral, he's gonna attack every turn anyway, so that's why I might consider giving him this. But honestly, it's more of a, I don't really have any other better perks to take on him. Maybe Pathfinder might be one. So if you are building some other type of fodder, Recover might be an option for if you're going for a tanker or armor hunter. It might be something you want to consider. They guzzle fatigue and you'll be spamming high fatigue skills. And another one might be the Mace Utility Bro. They might also benefit from taking Recover as well. And Mace Mastery is extremely useful because in early game, if you don't have Mace Mastery, just give your brother who's gonna be a mace guy Wooden Club. And this will help in survivability of your armor hunters because basically the mace guy will stun him with the wooden club and prevent your bros from getting hit. And once you do take that mace mastery, it's gonna help out armor hunting as well because wooden club does almost no damage to armor anyways, and you will just perma-stun the guy to death until they actually puncture him to death. And in later games, in real fights, give him two-hand maces and enjoy that 2-turn stun and dazed. Another perk you might consider giving to your brother is a taunt. It's a bit tricky to use, but it's a really good perk against things like Ifrit or Necro 7s and enemies with polearms, which are relatively easy to actually taunt. So rule of thumb, you use that on someone within 3 tiles and they'll come to attack you if you succeed. Like I said, it's a tricky perk, so try to take it yourself and practice with it if you're interested. And you can even give this to your main shield guy if you're actually good with it. So the last perk is Pathfinder, which allows you to be more flexible with moving and attacking on any terrain. And since you might take fight on pretty much any terrains and you might have to be forced into swamp or forest, this perk's gonna help a lot. So here's an example of a good split. So you can see that the brigand leaders pretty much separated himself from the main group and the rest of my group's picking him off. And yeah, this guy got hit by a werbrand, but it's not too much of a deal anymore. And my sacrificial Fodders basically gonna die here, very likely. But he's gonna hold off these 3 guys. He holded them off long enough for me to get the brigand leader and as well as the other brigands. So I'd say this is a big win. So what I did was I baited this guy to actually come in so I can dagger him to death. And this guy has to engage because that's how AI works. So right now he's in somewhat undesirable position because he's getting high ground advantage. And we're gonna try to do something about it, either by just surrounding him or breaking him, or using a shield bash to just drop him off the cliff and maybe put him over here. So if you indeed did have a wooden club, this is where you'd basically spam that stunning ability on him right now. So yep, he's broken. So reason you actually wouldn't take down his shield with an axe if I had an axe is because he would just waste turn putting a shield up. That's it for the video, people. That one person who subscribed to me, thank you. And if you're interested in following my videos, please consider subscribing. Next video I'm going to make is a short video on which backgrounds to pick on which roles you're gonna fulfill. And please leave in comments what kind of guides you actually want to see from me. I might actually do a wonky guide on a really interesting build that might come up soon. But till next time, I'll see you later. Thank you for watching.